Just wanted to show you what the finished composition looks like so you can understand the distance the cup is from the top of the paper and where the apple is from the side of the paper and the shell to the side. So you can see the composition. In the following videos, you're going to see the camera zoomed in a little bit so you can see my sketching, but it's important for you to understand the distances the still life is from the edge. So make sure you're not too high, too low, too left, or too right. I like to start off with a quick little sketch. So I want to think about what we call an envelope, which is the shape of the object. If I'm thinking of the cup, what shape would that be? Well, it kind of looks like a cylinder. So I'm just gonna kind of sketch out a cylinder, okay? Something very light. And it's kind of high on my paper because as you can see, the cup, which is behind, is higher on the paper. The apple, which will be below or in front, is lower on the paper, okay? So I'll sketch out an apple here. Be willing to erase. I know that's one thing I had to kind of remember is I have the ability to erase. I want to overlap that cup, so I'm just going to make it a little larger. And that's why you want to keep it light, because if you draw too heavy too soon, you won't be able to erase it. Okay, so I have an apple here, I have a cup here, and then I have a shell somewhere here. Look at your negative space in between. You can see how I have a lot of space in between my cup and my shell, which I should not have. And it looks like if the apple were here, I could make it a little bigger. It's almost half of my cup. So if my cup goes up to here, and that'll be the opening. So let's go ahead and get the opening in there, okay? And then we'll bring the cup a little lower because this would not be enough space for the front of the cup. So we'll just bring this down, okay? And pull this here. And you can draw right through the apple. You don't have to leave the apple open, okay? Meaning like draw behind it, even though it's not, you know, this is behind and this is in front, draw through it, I mean. Okay, so go ahead and finish up the apple on this side. Now I'm putting the overlap in front. Okay, make sure the apple doesn't get too large. And what I'm doing, what you can't see on camera, is I'm looking at my paper, the still life, my paper, the still life, paper, still life, back and forth. Sometimes people look at the paper, they draw, and then they look up at the still life one time, and then they look back at the paper, draw. What you want to be doing is draw, stop, look at your still life, draw, stop, look at your still life, draw, stop, look at your still life. My goal here is to get you a really nice still life, and you'll notice I chose items that are pretty easy to come by. I'm sure you have a coffee cup or some kind of cup in your house. I'm sure you can get access to an apple. You may not have a shell. You may want to substitute that. You could use a pencil sharpener. I mean, it could be anything really. But some other item here, and again, be unique. Don't think about finding items that I'm using. Try to find items that are fun for you to draw, that are unique. We don't want to have all cups, apples, and shells and all the still lifes that we see. You know, having some kind of variety is good. You don't have to copy what you see here. This is just an example. So I'm just kind of looking at that shell, breaking up the shapes. So you're seeing me draw this part of the shell, and think of a snowman, like I have to add on the tip. Think about adding on the head. You can even put just a simple triangle, even though it's not 100% to what you see, okay? And then this little flap right here. It doesn't have to be correct the first time around. Usually, I already know that my drawings are not right from the beginning, so I don't try to hold on to it too much. I know that I can fix it up a little bit, okay? Now, you have cast shadows in here. So you want to make sure you're getting those cast shadows while you're drawing, because what that does is by drawing these cast shadows now, you're able to see the negative space between the cast shadow and the next object. I'll give you an example. If I draw this cast shadow here, I'm able to see the negative space between the cast shadow and the bottom of the cup, which to me looks pretty accurate. My cup does not look like it's rounded. Think about a smiley face. It's not, the bottom of it's not rounded enough. So I'm going to go ahead and round that. That's why I said keep it light. And I'm just using this eraser. If you have something like this, a kneaded eraser, you can use this, which is preferred. This is what I use. And you would just take a little piece off. This erases your drawing, okay? And it also lifts it out, so you can press and lift out some of that line, but some of you guys may not have that kneaded eraser. So like I said, for my demo, we're just gonna use this pencil. I'm just gonna lightly erase some of these lines that I don't need. Now, construction lines can be good, and if you have a dirty eraser, you may want to just erase something first to get the dirt off, okay? And go back to erasing here. So I'm just erasing some of the construction lines that I don't need. Some of them that are helpful, I can leave them and they'll just get hidden in the drawing anyway, okay? Now to check this to see if it's straight up and down, right now you can kind of see it's leaning off to the side. I want to do a plumb line, which is that vertical line I told you about before. I'm just going to draw that straight down, as straight as possible. Okay, now I'm not using a ruler. I would recommend not using a ruler because the whole goal is to get better, and if you always depend on a ruler, it's harder to get better. What you could do is put your pencil down, and I'm just using the corner, the edge of my pencil here, and I'm putting my finger where the line is, and I can take that and drag it down, make sure this stays in the same spot, and if I'm still at the line on my thumb, then I know I have a straight line. So that's one way to check it. And then when you go across, you can do the same thing. Just kind of eyeball it, look at the edge of the paper at the top, and compare to see if you're going straight across, okay? And you can measure the top down and then slide over to see if you have a straight line. Okay, so this is going to be the edge. Now I want to make sure I'm symmetrical. So if I have this side here, okay, I'm going to put my pencil on the edge, put my finger here, slide it over, use the other hand to mark so I can get the other side, okay? This is gonna get me something symmetrical. Now on the bottom, you can see how that's off. Now the reason why I draw through is because I need to figure out one edge to also get the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw a line that goes across, again, as straight as possible. And you can compare here to here, this line to this line should be the same as this line to this line because we're working on a symmetrical item. Now, if I have my inside, let's say I'm using the right side this time, you can use the left side, it doesn't matter. But if this is where I want it over here, I'm gonna go from this side, the middle, to my finger, pointer finger, and I'm gonna slide that over. And I know that I'm sticking out too far on this left corner. Now you may ask me, well, Kalika, why does that even matter? It's behind the apple, why does it matter? Well, what I'm doing is setting up a grid for myself to get a symmetrical item. If I don't draw through the apple to get the corner of this cup, what's gonna happen is this angle may not go the right direction. If I did it the way I wanted to do it in the beginning, I would have been here. But just looking at my line, I need to connect this one to this one. So I need to actually taper in a little bit more. Now, if you guys see what I'm doing, this is important right here. You may not pick up on what I'm doing, but see, I'm using multiple lines to get one line. When you draw, you may actually be doing this. It's like you're drawing fur, or you get something that looks really furry. Okay, that's not what we want. I want you to think about muscle memory. Now that's why I said have a practice piece of paper next to you, just to practice some of the things that I'm telling you. I want you to think about drawing a circle. Just think about it. So I'm hovering above the paper. I'm not actually touching the paper. And my hand is actually not even on the paper. So I'm literally hovering when I'm doing this, okay? If you feel unbalanced, you can stick out your pinky and let your pinky rest. But nonetheless, practice drawing a circle. Just don't actually draw it. When you feel good about that circle, drop your pencil down and draw. Boom, okay? Now the same idea can happen in a line, okay? So now let me take this area right here. If I wanna draw a line, okay, a straight line, and not go so fast like this, I wanna slow it down, okay? Instead of drawing furry like this and having like 1,000 lines show, think about muscle memory, okay? So I want you to hover. When you're ready, drop a line. Hover and try to mimic the exact same line before. When you're ready, drop a line. Hover. Don't touch yet. When you're ready, drop a line. Now I'm getting one long line, even though I gave you 3, it appears as 1. So it eliminates this scratchiness here, okay? So that's what I was trying to show you here. That's how I'm getting these nice lines without the, showing 20 lines at the same time. Now I'm just erasing the line I do not need, okay? Which was that one that was too far to the left, okay? So now I have a taper here. Now let's check this side. I wanna go from here. Again, I'm doing the hover to there, okay? So now we have 2 sides. Let's take out the ones we don't need. That way I'm not confused, which happens very easily, okay? And then I wanna get the bottom, okay? So when you do the bottom, I want you to think of drawing a cup. We're doing axis lines. Okay, so we have a line that went down the center. We have a line that went across. We found one side that is equal to the other side. And then we made the bottom narrow. So we did another line. This one is equal to this one. That's what we did so far, okay? Now think about a piece of pie, okay? So we have a piece of pie and we want to make this ellipse right here. So you don't want to pinch your corners. So you never want to do that, okay? Because this is an ellipse, which means it's a circle at an angle. So you know it always has to be round. So you want to round the corners, figure out how much you can see inside of it. So an example would be if I have this tape roll, if you're looking down into it, it's a circle. But as I start to move this in perspective, you're seeing an ellipse. So now what you have to see is how far from here to here are we looking at. So what I'm trying to do is see how much of this ellipse I can actually see. Now, the more this becomes at my eye level, the narrow it becomes, okay? But what you'll always notice is that it's still round on the corners. It's not pinched. So if I squeeze this tape roll, then yeah, it would be pinched, but it's not squeezed. And then I go all the way, even if it's little, very little ellipse, it's still round on the corners. Do you see that? Until it becomes at eye level, and then it's just a line, okay? And when you're looking up at something, then you're seeing the bottom of it. So we want to see how much can we see inside that cup. That's the goal, okay? So in this case, let's say I see this far, whatever's on the top, copy it on the bottom, and then connect the dots, okay? Now what I did up here, I'm gonna do the same thing down here. I would go here, here, connect the dots. The only difference is this back edge we would not see. So when you complete the cup, you're seeing, and again, I'm just rough sketching this, so I'm not expecting it to be straight or anything, but I want you to understand the concept. If we go here, so I'm just gonna grab another color. What we're looking at for our cup is this is the top, okay? This is the side, and this is the bottom. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what we're doing right here. That is construction on how to get a cup. So that way you don't get the bottom like I drew it, okay? So you're gonna go on the top, take your pencil, line it up, pull it down, do the same thing on the bottom, and then connect, just like we did at the top. Now on the top, I'm gonna do the same thing. I have my horizontal, I have my vertical that goes all the way down. I'm gonna figure out how much I can see into that. So I see about here, and I'm looking right at my still life. I'm gonna adjust that to there, okay? Whatever I see on the bottom, so from here to here, let's call that A, will be the same from here to here, which is called A, okay? So you put your pencil down, find it with your finger, the tip of the pencil, slide that up, and mark it here. My cup is not straight, but I needed that as a guide, okay? So you'll notice that my cup does taper a little bit, so I could pull it out and taper it back in, okay? Or I could just go more narrow at the bottom. So we'll worry about that later. Right now, I'm just trying to get some construction down. So now that I have my cup roughly sketched in, I'm gonna go to my apple. Think about the axis line of the apple. So with the cup, the axis line was straight up and down because the cup was literally sitting straight up and down. With the apple, it's leaning, okay? So what we need to do is draw an axis line for the apple. We wanna make sure that that apple stays at the tilt that it's on. So I'm just gonna draw a line that is representing, like if I were to slice right down the core, what is the angle of that apple? And that helps me understand the opening, where things are, how that stem is gonna come out, which direction it's gonna face, how far it's gonna go. So that stem needs to reach about to here for it to make sense. Now, if I draw this stem to here, what I'll do is I'll draw it first, then I'll stop and kind of look. The stem makes more sense now. So even though I drew out the apple, we're gonna change the apple to fit the stem, because why? I looked at the negative space. I looked at the length of the stem, okay? So now let's construct the apple around the stem. Every time I pause, I know you can't see my face, but I want you to understand. Every time I'm pausing, I go like this, and I'm stopping. Just take note of what I'm doing. Every time I pause, I'm looking So that's me drawing, looking, just like I told you. I know this cup isn't drawn the way that I want to draw it, so what I'm going to do is change the cup and just kind of pull it out and pull it back in. Getting this handle in here, first let's think about the connection. Looks to me like an oval, so we're gonna draw an oval, okay? So it's, again, think general to specific. So I'm literally only looking at the opening. I am not paying attention to the handle at all, okay? I'm just looking at this space in here. That's paying attention to negative. So if you're having any trouble drawing something, draw the negative instead of the positive, okay? So it gets wider over here, okay? Then I'm gonna draw the top. Now I'm thinking about the handle. So now I'm switched my mindset to the positive. So now that I have a little bit more definition on this cup, I'm gonna kind of go back and get the cast shadow on there so I can see this cast shadow pulling this way. And we'll talk about these values in a minute. Some of you guys are like, what's a cast shadow? It's just the shadow cast by the light onto the tables. Actually make the shell a little smaller. It's getting a little too close to that cast shadow. Now I want a horizon line because I feel like all this is just floating, and I want to get a horizon line on there. So for me, I'm going to see where it goes through the apple, where it goes through the cup, and see if that makes sense for me. Now I don't want a tangent. I don't want my horizon line, which is that back, think of where the wall hits the table. I don't want that to line up with the apple. Okay, so I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I try not to let it actually touch the edge because I don't want the viewer to fall off the edge of the paper, so we'll let it kind of fade out before it goes up.